How's it going then, guys? In today's episode, we're going to talk about one individual in particular that's been coming up in many conversations recently, and I thought I'd just do a video about it because it's become really popular right now. And this video is about an old bodybuilder or ex-bodybuilder who isn't here with us now, unfortunately. His name is Mike Mentzer, and the last couple of years he's regained real big attention, right? So Mike Mentzer was very big back in the 70s and 80s as a bodybuilder, and he seems to really be back in a circulation right now, especially with the young adults right now. I've noticed. So Mike Mentzer is known for his high intensity training, shall I say? Sorry. Which basically came from someone called Arthur Jones back in like the 80s, who invented the Nautilus equipment. They had it's equipment that had like the cam belt rather than the pulley. It's like a pulley system rather than the cable and stuff. So very good equipment, by the way. Some of my favorite stuff to this day is still the Nautilus equipment. So if you've not used it, I would definitely recommend it if I was you. But getting back to the point, Mike Mentzer was very known for his very brief, short, but very high intense workouts, right? Like I'm talking very brief, pretty much very low volume, but very high intensity, very like a lot of heavy duty stuff, I'd like to call it. So he was basically get in the gym, get the work done, and get out. So his sessions would last no longer than say 30 minutes a lot of the time. So a lot of people, it's funny because a lot of people in the gym, right? So that's the reason I'm doing this video. Is a lot of people in the gym ask me, "Have I heard of Mike Mentzer? Have I heard of Mike Mentzer?" And it kind of makes me kind of laugh because I was listening to Mike Mentzer over 12 years ago now. So I was hearing about him when I first started the gym. But when I first started, I wasn't really into bodybuilding and stuff, but I still knew his principles. But at the time, I was only 18. So I'm 32 now. I'm nearly 33. So golly. But I was hearing about him when I first started training back when I was 18. So when I hear these 18-year-olds now over 12 years ago and they're asking me if I know who he is, I'm like, oh, of course I know who he is. You know, it's kind of makes me laugh. But he wasn't that big back then. And especially back in the 80s. So he was going up against the sort of the Weeder system, or the Wilder system, what you want to call it, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger's system, which is very high volume, 4 hours in the gym, you know, sometimes twice a day. And at that time, he was going against a real big like business, you know, big corporation. So he kind of got pushed aside, bless him, and you know, kind of got shunned for a lot of his stuff. And there's a lot of misconceptions about him. And like I say, I followed him for years now. So Arthur Jones like sort of brought this into discussion, the high intensity principles, and then Mike Mentzer sort of implemented them. And in my opinion, the next person, Dorian Yates, came along and perfected it. He came along and he had influence off him as well. So he came along, but he kind of made a hybrid version, and it worked really well. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the best ways to train, especially if you're a natural bodybuilder like myself. I've seen great results training that way. So the big question is, what's the big obsession with Mike Mentzer? So I think a lot of people don't understand, you see, because it's like, it was like, oh, what's so good about him? I've noticed some of these like high-rated like podcasters who are talking about him and saying, I don't really know what they're on about, and they kind of think he's like it's very underrated. But I think what the obsession is with him is that here's someone who really came in and actually put a science to building muscle. He didn't just come in and say, yeah, you know, do this many reps, do this many. He actually put a precision amount of like exercise and reps and a philosophy towards training. So that really appealed to people, that the fact that, you know, something you could measure, and he had many clients that could that would back him up. You know, it wasn't just one of those things that was like, oh, it's just for him, right? Yeah, it only works for him. No, this works for pretty much every person, right? So, and I think that's the main key to take away from this, is that he was probably one of the first ones. He's a very interesting guy. He's very smart, very intelligent. He's got some great books out, and he actually did what he said he did. according to a lot of people who was close with him, a person called John Little. He's a great friend of his, and he advocates that he really. Everyone's like, no, surely he doesn't work out like that. Surely he just, behind the scenes, he's doing more volume. No, he really did train 30 minutes 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week. He really did that. So these guys who used to know him, great friends of him, they vouched him for that. So either way, that's all I wanted to say in this video so far. That is the main thing. I think he's the first one really who came along and put philosophy behind bodybuilding. That's basically it. And that's what I tell a lot of people as well. And I think one of the main people struggle with is like, which one do I do? Do I go down the Arnold route or do I go down the high intensity route? And I always say this to people, get best of both worlds, right? So do both. That's what I do. That's the platform I work from. I will do, say, a 6 to 8 week program, high intensity, where I'm really focusing on low volume, just like getting my strength up, getting stronger, lower reps, taking stuff to failure per exercise. And you don't really want to be doing that kind of style of training any longer than 6 to 8 weeks anyway, in my opinion, because not only does it affect your body muscularly, locally, it also affects it systemically, meaning your whole body needs to recover from this, not just muscle recovery. Like if you train your biceps, you could probably train them 2 days later, but systemically, let's say if you really push yourself to failure, systemically, everything else needs that time to recover as well, right? So it's like he explains it in a way where, you dig a hole, now you need to cover that hole, and the recovery side of it and is recover the hole, what's been the damage that's been made, and plus a little bit more for that's growth, tiny bit more just to add on top of the mound. So next time you come in, it keeps coming up and up and up. Basically, I'm trying to hope that makes sense, right? He explains it a lot better than me. There's a lot of videos out there. If you haven't watched any, I definitely recommend you watch and listen to some of his old seminars. They're out there on YouTube. You can see them, and they're very interesting. And they may just change your outlook on bodybuilding a whole. It did with me. I remember back in the day, like I say, golly, they were talking over 10 years, 12 years ago now when I was sort of listening to this. And even then I was kind of listening and I was quite skeptical, It was a bit like, well, really? You do one set per exercise? Only doing like 4 to 6 exercises and you're really low volume? It's surely not, right? But it really does work. I applied the methods. Like I say, I'll do a hybrid. Anyway, I was going back to that now. 6 to 8 weeks. Then after that, do volume for 2 to 4 weeks. Just come in, pump up, spin your wheels a bit, just change up a little bit. Just gives your body that time to fully recover. And you're basically like taking your new muscle growth for a test run. So that's where you do real high reps. I'm talking super high reps if you need to, drop sets, supersets, and do whatever you need to do just to go in and just have fun with it, because sometimes you need to come back and just recalculate a little bit and just be like, look, okay, you can really tell as well after 6 weeks. If you do this properly, after 6 to 8 weeks, you'll feel it. You can't do it any longer than that if you stick to this. Just because it's real fatiguing, it's real hard on the body, but it's good hard, if that makes sense. It's like, it's that stress that gives you the growth stress, It's so. But that's all I just wanted to say about this topic. I hope this informs you a little bit. And if you're skeptical about trying the methods, if I was you, just give it a go. Just try it. Just do a couple of weeks where you just low volume, really focus on good quality reps, which you should be anyway, and take a set to failure, true failure, as in like say if you're doing chest, you got the positive, then you got the static, which is the hold, and then you got the down, which is negative. So obviously the positive is going to fail a lot more. It's going to fail first before the negative. So you might need a spotter, which I know sometimes that's quite difficult to get, but all you need is one set. You're basically taking all that to failure. As soon as you can't do a full rep again, as soon as that part's done, you can't hold that there. The muscle's depleted. Then you move on to your next exercise and so on. So, yeah, and that's basically it. He was an interesting guy. He's going back to Mike real quick just to wrap up. I think he's one of the only ones to win Mr. America, and when used to a point system competing back in the day, right? So I think he's the only one who used to a score, used to get scored back then, as in with points. And it went up to a level 300, and he was the only one was to get 300 in a Mr. America contest. So it goes to say, doesn't it? It says a lot, and he's getting real recognition like nowadays. So, which is kind of good, it's good to see all sides of training and and stuff like that. So there's a lastly, there's a very skeptical competition. The Mr. 1980 Mr. Olympia, probably the most skeptical ever. It's still nowadays people argue whether it was fixed and Arnold should still would have won. And I don't really have an opinion about it. I mean, it is what it is. Was it fixed? Potentially, who knows? Maybe, but it's definitely a bit weird when you look into that show. So if you've not seen it, I would search for it again. There's stuff on YouTube where you can find it. Certain people are going to say he should have won, or they're going to say, well, I think the point is that he never said he should have won. He's just saying that Arnold shouldn't have. And I could have agreed. I could agree with that. They put it down to sour grapes, but he even mentioned before he's lost some other greats before. Like he lost to Robbie Robinson, who was like one of his biggest competitors, who's phenomenal shape, and you can see why. And they had great competition. He came second to him a few times, and Robbie came second to him as well. So they had good, they had that good relationship. So it definitely says a lot of things, So, but you look it up yourself, and you can make up your own conclusions, right? So, either way, yeah, that's all I want to say in this video. Do I like him? I love him. I think he's great. If you've never heard of him, I would definitely, like I say, I would look up some of his stuff, especially his seminars. He just gives another spin on things, especially his philosophy, But you're going to hear a lot of rumors and stuff as well about how he took all these drugs, which was true. He went through traumatic experiences and stuff like that, and had a bit of a rough life that way aside of it when you look into things. But he was just honest about all of his things, and I could really appreciate that. He was honest and came out of it and said, yeah, you know what, I did do this. And the difference is he was honest, and a lot of the others were like, no, I never did. And it's like, yeah, they did as well. He was just a bit more honest than the others, I think. But that's all I'll say about that. Either way, whatever he was doing, all the rest was doing as well. Let's put it that way. So either way, I will catch you in the next video. And like I say, I hope this helps you. And yes, don't forget to like and subscribe. So take care. Thanks for watching.